Gotcha. Now we're just kind of around it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I figured. That's why I wanted to bring it up to your attention. I'll let them know.
Are we still using these? No. Yes.
Well, it depends on your using that now, right?
Whenever you give me the go ahead, Wendy. Oh, are you guys sharing?
Oh, there's.
I can project very well.
That was good.
Or you didn't think.
I need to get started.
I can project as well.
This one works.
We'll give that to him since you've already got yours, right?
You ready? Okay.
That's not it.
I heard it.
We did.
Okay. All right. I will call the regular city council meeting for the city of Dunsmuir to order on October 5th at approximately 6:01 p.m. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move into roll call.
Councilmember Keisler,
Here.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Here.
Councilmember Bryan,
Present.
Councilmember Clarno,
Here.
Mayor Lucchese.
Here, thank you. So we'll move into item number 3, which is special presentations, and we have an update from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife on the Dunsmuir Rail Yard Response Action Restoration Project. Thank you for having us back. I am Anna Berkholder, with the Fish and Wildlife Office, Bill Fish and Response. I am the liaison officer on this project. Oh, that wasn't on.
So yes, we're here to give an update on the project. We've been very busy since about July going through now. So we'll give you, I'll kind of go through the overview, and I have control of this.
Sure you do.
Sure I do. I will also say that you guys have wonderful questions, and I brought some big guns today too. There's no pun intended, but I've got a lot of our subject matter experts on hand if you guys have some questions that Eric and I cannot answer. So, okay, so this is just an overview of what we're going to talk about. The different excavations going on, the in-river isolation barrier, wildlife protection, river safety messaging, just kind of all the good things we've been doing and are going to be doing for the rest of the year. So looking at this map, you can see some green highlights and kind of some light orange highlights. The green highlights are what we're going to do this construction season. So through about December or so. And then the southern action area is what we will be working on next year. So just keep that in mind as we go through the slideshow. Okay, so the dry excavation, we started back up in July doing the dry excavation. We've actually been working on this for the entire site. So the northern and southern action areas, so both the green highlights and kind of the orange highlights. This will be completed by the end of the construction season, and actually it's very close. There's one area by kind of the wooden wall, I think that they still have a little bit of work to do. But we're really close on the dry excavation. So the wet excavation, we started, I believe, on September 18th. And so again, we're getting down into groundwater. That's where we're getting into a lot of more of the oil products. This is why we're here, to get this out of the ground. So you can just see some photos of how that's working. Backfilling with barrier sand. You can kind of see that in the center picture. In the far picture, that's just showing loading up some of the dry excavation material into rail cars that goes, I believe it's going to Utah for disposal. Anyway, just kind of a view of what's going on with that. And again, wet excavation is only in that green highlighted area for this year. point up, Joe. Can you advance it for me, Blake? Just. Thank you. I know so much more control. I have it just for a minute. All right, in-river isolation barrier. So these are some photographs of what it looks like. It is now complete. We got to go down and take a look at it today. It's about 600 feet in length. Starting at where the restoration area is. You can see it in the first picture on the left. Kind of built that, again, extended it about 600 feet. And we wanted that in the river prior to starting wet excavation, thinking that once we start excavating down deeper and getting into that wet stuff, it could start maybe seeping into the river, and we want to make sure it wasn't going to go anywhere. So this barrier will stay in place, actually a little further, not just when my wet excavation wraps up, but we are also going to be doing some restoration, and so that barrier is going to stay in there because they're going to take the wall out, the retaining wall that's there, and then build back the shoreline and restore it. So we want this barrier in place, you know, so there's not a lot of silt and everything going into the river.
Question? I'm a little confused there. I'm looking at it. There's blue barriers and what appear to be gray. Are they the same thing? Just
Same thing, it's just the light.
yeah, that's what I figured. Just want to
Yes.
make sure.
It's just the light. And those bags are filled, they're called super sacks. They're filled with sand and rock. Just so you know. Okay, so again, that's gonna come out when we're done with this year's version of the restoration. And then next year, before we start wet excavation, it's gonna go back in. It'll just have to shift downstream a little bit for that work. I'll try this, like. Yeah. Did I do that or did you do that? Okay, sweet. All right. So with the in-river isolation barrier, we kind of realize we're putting a hazard in the river, right? So it's kind of narrowing the channel a little bit. Where we narrow the channel, the water gets really swift, kind of passing through that area. So we decided that it was really important to get some messaging out to the public. If folks were getting in the river and floating, you know, paddling, kayaking, whatever, you know, they may be doing. We wanted to do our best to warn folks that there's barriers in the river. It doesn't block off the channel, it just narrows it and kind of makes probably a fast kind of a shoot area. So we created a couple of signs, the important river safety information, and then we also created some that were a little more attention grabbing, with the orange diamond, whatever, just to grab your attention, because if people are already in the water and they're getting to those areas, we wanted to say, you probably want to exit the river now. That would be a good idea. The map that you see up here, we had a team of 2 folks come out on September 20th, and the red pin drops that you see are where we have signage placed. In some cases, we have signs posted next to the water, facing some areas. Again, if people are on the water, hopefully they can see those if they're coming down. And other places where people might be entering a park situation, we have more of the important river safety information. I also emailed this sign out to a lot of businesses in town. I've seen it in town. We got here yesterday and a lot of them have it posted in their windows or community boards, that kind of thing. I sent it to the city, sent it to Wendy. That signage will stay in place again until that barrier comes out of the water. We will go back, retrieve all those signs. And then again, for next year, when the barrier goes back in, we will put more signage out. We will determine with Unified Command if they would like to place signage further upstream. I reached out to a lot of our local folks, including Sergeant Ortiz, and we had some places identified up by Cantera Loop, Nay Springs Road, other places further up where people might access the river. So for next year, maybe when we have a full season, maybe we'll have some signage a little further up the river. Okay. All right, wildlife exclusion fencing, and protection protocols. before the wet excavation began, you know, we had a doe that was kind of walking through the rail yard. She was very friendly and we didn't want her getting oiled. We figured there's, you know, there's other critters around. So we were able to get exclusion fencing put up around the site. In the photos, you can see some of the fabric on the lower portions. That's to keep smaller animals out from getting through, you know, your typical chain mesh fencing, whatever. So that's set up around the site. We have game cameras that are set up on the site to view the open excavation areas where there's water or oil exposed. Those things are an attractant, especially at night for bats or birds. It looks like water and they will go right into it and get oiled. So we're covering them up with Visqueen when there's no activity going on or at night. So, and then there's additional protocols. Haley is online here. She is our environmental unit leader. And so she worked on those set of protocols. You know, if an animal comes through, you know, stop work, give her a call, you know, we have all those in place. I know we saw on the outside of the fencing, we caught a bear, I think, wandering around too. We saw that on the game cameras, I think. So 2 of them, Haley says 2 of them. So nothing in the site. So we're trying to keep them out because that's the best situation is we don't have to deal with an oiled animal, especially a large animal. That would be great to not have to take care of it. Retaining wall removal. So again, along that whole straightaway of the rail yard, there's a big cement wall that's been there a long time. They're starting to take that down. And they're not completely removing it at this point, but when they get to the restoration portion, I confirmed that today, they will take that wall completely out. And then we will restore the shoreline. You know, there'll be some rock on the edge and we'll restore habitat. So eventually that's all gonna come out. Okay, and I believe I talked about this last time. Once all the wet excavation is done, we're gonna backfill with clean, locally imported material, and then do some restoration. There's the restoration site in the northern portion. It's gonna probably closely match that type of restoration with native plants and all the good stuff. I learned today that area that's open right now. It sounds like that's also going to be restored. It's not just the shoreline. So I was talking to Union Pacific today and so I was pretty happy to hear that. So there's that. That's the end of the presentation.
All right, we'll go through and ask questions of council members.
I have
Okay.
one. So, with it looking like it's gonna be a strong El Nino year,
Okay.
I just want to kind of ask and clarify that, especially the prevention wall in the river, what level of high water and flooding was that designed to accommodate?
Is that designed to accommodate? Can I turn to one of my phone a friend on the line? Is that okay?
Go.
That's great.
This is why I asked them to be here. I'm gonna start with Greg. Greg, I don't know if you heard the question. The in-river isolation barrier, do we know what magnitude of flow, current it can handle if we have if we get a big rain event like we did this last year before that barrier comes out?
Well, we do. Unfortunately, I don't have that elevation in front of me, but we did have 2 of our river experts go through the historical high flows through the river and also what happened last year. And we also, just so everyone knows, we do monitor what's coming out of off the dam. So we watch this pretty carefully, and we do have 2 river experts that are on top of this. And if you need the elevation of the top of that bag, we can get that to you and send it to you, but I don't have that right in front of me right now. But we did
Okay.
a lot of research and you know, probably, you know, well over 200 hours in studying what the river would do at this point.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg.
So just really quick before we go to Councilmember Kaiser, did you have any more questions?
That's the main question.
Councilmember Kaiser, go ahead. Just remember to speak into the microphone.
He's got one.
Oh, sorry, you've got one on your shirt. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Bruce's butt is right in the perfect spot.
Dunsmuir's had Volkswagen vans go down this river before, just so you guys up there in TV land are aware of that as far as the magnitude of. My question is, you're taking out the wall. Now, you took us all on a field trip
Yes,
last year.
okay.
And you showed us how it tapers down
Mhm.
and we pretty much have a beach. And the bushes and the roots are gonna shore it up. We got rocks. Is that the same idea where the wall is? It's going to be tapered down, so that's all gonna be contoured like that. Where
Correct.
there's no water restrictions for water at all, just all that is like.
It's open to the river, yeah.
Like a
So,
beach.
well,
It'll be vegged. There is a revegetation plan, I believe.
yeah, there's a revegetation plan. So yes. So I'll also ask Greg to confirm that, but the idea is, yes, it'll be contoured and sloped down. Because, there's still, I was down there today where they've been digging and you kind of stand at this level and you look down at the river. So it will be contoured and sloped down to the river. And it will be vegetated, revegetation. And yes, and Greg, can you confirm it'll just be open to the river? And I believe that's the idea, is that we are opening up more width of the river, more fish habitat, birds.
So
I got a part B.
yeah, if Greg wants to
Okay.
answer
Yeah.
that, and you can.
Greg, is that
okay? Part.
Yeah, that's the plan, and but right at the base of where the slope hits the river, so right at the river's edge, there will be an anchor section of rock just to hold everything in place.
That's what
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm worried about you taking all that out
Mhm.
and all this water comes along.
And it's just,
Now what do I got? Butterfly Bridge. Butterfly Bridge can't pass the test now. You
right,
want to increase the water flow to it by taking all the deterrents away. So there's my concern.
I can address that. So I did look at the floodplain. So when we submitted, they had to submit all the information to the city. And we did evaluate the floodplain for impact. And it's actually, it's like negligent because they're taking a wall out, the restriction that causes the water to go more forceful. And it's actually increasing the width of the floodplain and the capacity. So we won't see the same, what we're used to, we won't see that downstream, right? So
We've reduced the force or the pressure.
right,
on the bridge.
because we've widened the floodplain, so there's more availability for larger flow.
And then as the side re-veges, it'll actually act as like a natural deterrent to
Yes.
forceful flows. So right now it's hitting basically like this kind of surface. And imagine if you were to put like a piece of moss or grass here, if you were to hit that with water, it's going to be absorbing some of that
gonna slow it down.
velocity
Yeah.
and slowing it down.
yeah, we call it roughness.
I appreciate it. 'Cause
Yeah,
some of my best friends live down there. But flat.
no, understood, yeah, as Mayor Lucchese said, yeah, it's something called roughness, and so the vegetation will help slow that force down and it spread it out, and yes, that was a great question.
Is there a plan to also incorporate additional habitat restoration pieces for fish species, like putting in older stumps or other types of features?
Excellent
Part
question.
of the project.
Haley, do we know, or Haley or Greg, do we know the answer to that? Are we gonna put in like logs and things for fish habitat? Or is it just gonna be kind of our shoreline?
I don't believe I've seen the 2024 restoration proposal. Inherently, we are going to get logs. There's a few large oak trees that are ready to go down on the opposite bank of our site. It's just imminent. It's going to be a nice nursery log. But I honestly haven't seen the proposal yet. It's going to be similar to what we already have, and we had not installed any new logs at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, wanted to speak to what has been found.
Okay,
Because I know when we toured a year ago, they didn't necessarily have the greatest understanding of what would be found. And there's some fear that it might go all the way back to underneath the railroad lines.
Uh-huh.
Now that you've gotten in there and seen the amount of
material.
hazardous material, could you speak to the quantity and how it matched up with the expectations?
I can have Greg chime in on that. I don't know that we have a quantity yet. I mean, we've just started the process of the wet excavation, and obviously it's gonna go over a couple years. Greg, at the end of this, will we have sort of a quantification of how much material that we're gonna recover, the petroleum material?
We will have a good idea of the total material recovered, and we could, or we will have a good idea of the percentage that was contaminated from the oil, but the oil's just pretty much everywhere once you get down below groundwater. I mean, everything has, or not everything, but a lot of areas have been touched by the oil. So it really gets down to how do you classify that? If you want to just say all of that's contaminated, yes, we'll have a quantity. I think right now our look is it's going to be in the range of 90,000 to over 105,000 cubic yards. We've already taken out about 45,000 yards.
And he's referring to the amount of material, not just, if you want to, not liquid petroleum. I think that's what you're asking, but Greg is referring to the amount of material
I was
coming out
more
of the
just
ground.
generally referring to the scope of
Okay.
hazard.
Okay.
It had not being known because it was over 100 years old.
Sure.
So kind of a follow-up question, maybe this is best directed to Jacobs Engineering, but I'm sure you guys kind of regulate this. My understanding was they were going to take out what they found as hazardous, but not agreeing carte blanche, the railroad, to take out everything because it might interfere with their, operations. The compromise has been to develop this with 8-foot wide packed sand barrier.
Correct.
I think Dunsmuir generally is concerned with, we're doing all this work, they're finally spending the money to excavate. If they don't get the hazardous material out, is that, well, how's that working? Is that still the plan? And what sort of oversight is there on them not leaving a bunch of material and hoping this sand wall will last another 30 years and maybe 50?
Right.
We'll be back 50 years from now with oil leaking into the river.
So I can start with that and then ask Greg to chime in, or if John or Eric know, but so yes, we're bringing in barrier sand. We're also going to put in something called an aqua block. It's trenching. So those pieces are going to they're going to go lengthwise, and anything that's up west, on the west side of this work we're doing, it's meant to, if there's any still material in the ground, meant to keep it from not flowing toward the river. They are going to put in monitoring wells on the side that we're working on. So several years can go by and we can monitor what is in the water, what is in the groundwater on this side, and what's in the groundwater on the side that we did not excavate, and kind of, see how well it's working, that kind of thing.
Will you guys monitor it directly, or will Union Pacific report it?
Kate.
Yeah,
Who
Kate
is
has her
going-
hand up.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Kate, you've had your hand up for a long time. Kate, please jump in. Kate is with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. She is part of our unified command and our subject matter expert. So Kate, please take it away.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and say that so this work is being completed per the EPA's the US EPA's Clean Water Act order. There's still a Central Valley Regional Water Board cleanup and abatement order in effect at the site. So once the initial threat of a discharge is removed by excavating the soil and putting clean backfill in, there is a performance monitoring plan. They've already submitted a draft, and we're kind of going back and forth with comments, and once we get a finalized design, we'll finalize that monitoring plan. So that's something that the water board is requiring as part of the cleanup and abatement order. And so I think we'll be the main agency overseeing a little bit the longer term kind of groundwater flow through the remediated area. And we'll also be overseeing the cleanup of anything upland or up gradient of this excavated area. So this won't be the end. The UP will be continuing to work with us to remediate the upland area.
So as far as them continuing to work, is there any thought on how far west this excavation will go? Kind of towards the track? Does it look?
Yeah, I think they've done a design that is as far as they will excavate westward. And anything upland of that, they will propose a different remedial strategy, is my understanding.
Can I answer that? There were other technologies to go and address the situation by the railroad tracks. And most likely it'll be some sort of in situ stabilization, which is fairly common in the remediation industry, and it's, you know, I'm literally working on at least a dozen projects where we're using that technology to control NAPL. And then back to the barrier that we're building, you need to remember the design only required an 8-foot width of barrier sand, but the barrier sand is going all the way across that excavation that you see. So it's literally, you know, 50 to 70 feet wide at that point. So we're pretty confident the barrier sand's going to work. There's a lot of sand that's being put in that is beyond the design that we have. So we're pretty confident that the barrier is going to work. But as Kate said, you know, the upland work is still in the planning process.
Yeah, and to just piggyback real quick, that upland area remediation is, you know, whatever strategy is proposed for that remediation will go through a CEQA process and a feasibility study, and you know, that will have its own process for evaluation.
Councilmember Kessler, you had a
I
question?
just, Kate, excuse me, who do you work for?
I'm with the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any other follow-up?
No, thank you.
Could you maybe clarify our involvement moving forward in terms of, you know, what information is shared with us on a frequent basis? And, you know, it's, I guess, a little disappointing in the context of we're a disadvantaged community that has been taken advantage by the Union Pacific Rail Line this is not our first environmental rodeo with them. And, you know, looking at the national context of railroad interaction with small disadvantaged communities and environmental hazards, you know, what is being put in place to ensure that we move forward in the cleanest possible future? I mean, I appreciate installing the technology and having confidence in that, but, you know, confidence intervals only go so far and sometimes things fail. And so I'm curious if maybe the next time we have a presentation, we can take a better look into the technology that's being used and putting forward into the project.
Okay.
And then potentially, if it's possible, to be involved with the Water Quality Board in terms of reviewing the future, you know, monitoring program. I think we'd like to be involved in that, because again, it's our community members who would be directly impacted by that. And I think we'd be doing them a disservice if we just kind of sat on the wayside. And it's not a criticism of any of you here. We really appreciate the process. This is honestly the nicest process we've ever gone through. But the fact that we have all of your attention, I mean, it's really important for us to make sure that this is done in a way that's going to, you know, benefit the community for the rest of, you know, as long as we can.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from there.
Happy to. So next time we can come and present and so maybe make a focus on the aqua block, the barrier sand, and how that process is going to work.
What's gonna make it forever?
Right. Okay. And then moving forward with communication involving the city with decision processes, the CEQA process, and okay, sure,
Yeah.
we can absolutely.
Yeah, I
address those.
understand we're a responsible agency in CEQA, but sometimes small jurisdictions don't have the capacity to be able to effectively communicate to those documents.
Okay,
So
absolutely.
I think having as much time as possible to review those and be
Okay.
able to comment would be lovely.
Sure, absolutely.
Think about one question. I'm just curious, how has the influx and outgo of trucks and all of that worked? How has that been going smoothly? Any problems?
Greg, can you speak to the truck traffic and has it been going well?
It's been going pretty well. I think you may have seen a lot of trucks parked at Manfredi's during the days when we have a lot of trucks coming in and they get here early, but as far as we can tell, it's been going well. I don't know if any of the residents have complained about the trucks. They pretty much have stayed on the route that we've specified down Sacramento Avenue.
The only feedback that I was aware of were a few times where a truck parked on Sacramento Avenue by the Dunsmuir Hotel and seemed to be blocking that area. And I'm assuming that they're doing that because the project trailer is there, right? So that's why they would be stopping to talk to somebody. But that was the only thing I ever heard of, was people, trucks that were parking on Sacramento Avenue coming south and parking on the right-hand side there. But
Okay,
just going to point that out.
okay, we
I
can.
can comment on some of the things that I did address just this week, actually. There was, and it's the trucks that are inbound coming from the north with the, and so there has been some potential speed issues on Sacramento and stuff like that. I did address that with Union Pacific directly. Because they're all contract, those are local guys that are driving those trucks, right? So they're familiar with the roads, and sometimes, with the traffic and everything on the freeway, they've been getting behind and backed up. And so there's been some of that congestion that has caused some constraints on the project being successful. So I think those guys are feeling that pressure, but I have addressed some speed issues too.
I'm actually surprised at how few complaints we've heard.
Excellent.
Me too.
Glad to hear that. Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you for addressing that, Dustin.
And I saw Katie, you had your hand up again. Did you want to add anything else?
Oh, I was just gonna jump back to what you had mentioned about being involved, kind of moving forward. And I think we're all happy to do that for sure. I just wanted to make sure you knew that that performance monitoring plan, all of that is it's on a public website as well on GeoTracker, but I'm certainly happy to make sure you guys receive that if you're interested. But that is all public.
And
I'll make
if
sure-
we could have your emails or anything, because I have other technical questions
Okay.
that nobody here wants to listen
Gotcha.
to.
I
So-
have those.
Okay, cool. I
Okay.
appreciate it. But otherwise, any other questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank
And we will open this up for the general public if you'd like to make a comment right after this. So if
Sure.
one or two of you could stay in
Yes.
case there are any questions. We might just ask for clarification since we don't get you guys very often in person. So I will now move us into item number 4 tonight, which is our general public comment. This is time in our agenda to comment on items that are not on the agenda, items that we just heard about in special presentations, or items on our consent agenda. Tonight, we do have quite a few consent agenda items, first being our check register for August 26th through September 29th, 2023. 8B is our COPS grant budget amendment, proposed increased budgeted revenue amount. 8C is Prop 68 Children's Park Grant Sole Source Justification Paperwork. So you can comment on any of those consent items at this time, the special presentation, or on items not on the agenda. And those of you on Zoom may go to the reactions tab and raise your hand, and you may also have 3 minutes to make your comment.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. My name is Peter Arth. I live at 5859 Sacramento Avenue, just down the road. And I find it beyond ironic that as overseers, you're micromanaging the details of the remediation project, which you should. But let us talk about sidewalks and curbs. In my last utility bill from the city of Dunsmuir, there is a declaration. The city of Dunsmuir is informing all residents that the maintenance of the adjoining sidewalk is the responsibility of the property owner. I don't know who drafted that. I don't know who decided to put it into the insert, but with my background, just looking at the notice, all residents, does that exclude business, commercial, and manufacturing? Is it just residents you're informing of this policy? When you talk about the sidewalk, are you talking about the flat horizontal surface? Or are you talking about the curb as well? And the notion is, I have had this interface both as a residential owner and a business owner, involving any number of the members of the staff. And it's a very imprecise process, because if you had your curb torn up by the city's snow removal exercises, is that the residents' responsibility? If you had your sidewalk heaved by trees that you had no role in planting or maintaining, is that the residents' responsibility? And for whatever the policy is, how's that working for the city of Dunsmuir and the visitors and the residents? We have heaved sidewalks all over downtown Dunsmuir. And ironically, some of them belong to the city of Dunsmuir. If you go to our children's playground, you're going to see heaved sidewalks that are a risk to old people, that are a risk to children, strollers, skateboards, bikes. The sidewalk on Sacramento Avenue in front of our empty and abandoned buildings, several people have fallen and seriously injured themselves. And the city's position is, we're not responsible. We have no liability. How long is that going to work before somebody gets really seriously injured or worse? And sure, the city will say, hey, we put this out.
Mr. R, thank you. That is your time.
But we need to do something, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other general public comments? All right, seeing none, thank you guys so much for coming today. We're all good, and we've got your contact information, and we appreciate you coming.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move into item number 5, which is staff and member comments. I'll start with the sheriff's office today with their reports, since they have some important places to be, maybe.
All fair. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just make sure you talk into the mic.
Hello, I'd like to take a moment just to introduce 2 of our newer deputies, Deputy Mezcua, Deputy McQuillan. The sheriff's office recently has had a good run of luck. They both come to us from compliments of Del Norte County. They're laterals is what we call them, or journeymen, with years of experience between the 2 of them. There's one more that I have not got an opportunity to embarrass yet, but their day will come. So you'll see them out and around. They're enthusiastic about the job, well-trained. And I'm excited and glad to have them. I think they're going to do the city of Dunsmuir a great service.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe each prepared a written biography. Yes.
Thank you.
So the stats for the month of August, city of Dunsmuir is contracted for 5,280 hours of patrol time for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. As of this date, 1,121 hours have been completed. 16% of the fiscal year is complete. 21% of the contracted hours have been completed. For the month of August, I received 626 hours of log time. We had 226 calls for service. Last year we had 212. We took 13 cases. Last year we had 14. 7 citations were issued, 2 of which were traffic related, 2 were for warrants, and 3 were cite and release misdemeanor crimes. We had 6 arrests, 3 felony and 3 misdemeanor, and the arrests are actual bookings. We had 2 assaults, 8 alarms, 5 animal related calls, 3 assists, 0 auto thefts, 0 burglaries, 0 death investigations, 12 disturbing the peace calls, 1 domestic violence incident. The deputies went out with 20 different subjects, 13 different vehicles. They conducted 20 patrol checks, 10 security checks, 19 school checks, investigated 1 traffic collision, There were 4 theft incidents, 17 incidents of trespassing, 34 traffic stops were conducted, 3 vandalisms, and 1 welfare check. We were up 10 from last year on our traffic stops. We were down 8 incidents on the disturbing the peace calls. The school checks were up lightly. We were down 3 on traffic collisions. I've just seen a lot less people. I just started working nights again this week on Monday. We're just not seeing people out and about like we traditionally have seen. Given this time of year as well. The weather's been pretty mild and nice, but I'm just not seeing the foot traffic and the vehicle traffic. But that's awesome. Everything closed at that hour anyway, so the city's not missing out. So as far as notable incidents went in the month of August, we had the stabbing incident that I mentioned at the last meeting. That investigation is still ongoing. The elderly man that stabbed the younger man had a brain bleed, so he's getting advanced medical treatment out of the area. The one that was stabbed, he's already been arrested since, so he appears to have made a fantastic recovery. And we had a domestic violence incident on the 4800 block of Siskiyou Avenue. When deputies arrived on scene, they determined it was kind of a rolling domestic fight between the 2 parties, and both parties were subsequently arrested for felony domestic violence. That's all I have.
The only slight change is technically they're not contracted hours because we need a contract from you. So
I knew that was coming. Did you hear me even?
I'm
alter
really
the stuff?
just doing it through emails, but no one's getting it to me via email. So you should tell your county auditor to maybe get us an extension, please.
You bet.
So we are paying you, I believe, so that's good. Maybe
I
that.
would sign a check.
Yeah.
This week, and Councilman Brian is, it sounds like we'll be doing more meetings, please get out of that.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm a fan also.
Yeah. All right, any other quick questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. You guys have a very
And
safe
you
night.
guys, welcome.
City
Thanks,
Manager Reed.
All right, so it's been what? It's been almost a month.
No,
We didn't have the last meeting.
3 weeks.
3.5 weeks. All right. It's been busy 3.5 weeks. So we currently have a bat study going on up at the tank. And so we're looking at so apparently back in 2016, when we took on the contract for the funding, there was a bat study requirement prior to tree removal. Well, everything got delayed about 5 years, and then that was no longer a requirement in all the new contracts, so it got missed. And so we have subsequently had to go back, and we're mitigating the bat study requirement right now. And that's looking promising. There are bats, and we're just they'll provide us a report on what we can do to mitigate and improve habitat possibly up there at the tank, but they are here in town right now. Let's see, snow policy. We have currently working on snow policy, snow routes, all that stuff. We're going to meet on the 19th again. And then with the goal of presenting it to the first council meeting in November. And that being said, as there's the equipment on here, subsequent to that, we've also by then we should have our new plows. We have our new trucks already, and all that stuff's in the process of getting outfitted. I'll leave that one for Michael. Public Works building. It's been a longer than what we want process. We're working diligently to try and bring it forward. We met on site here last week and have gone back and forth about some details. But it's not moving as fast as we'd like.
Question on that? Somebody brought up something about a maple tree. Have you heard that question?
Oh, for the trees, it's old.
Well, they mentioned the word maple, and it's between the Park and Recs building and the pool. Is
Yeah.
that gonna go away?
Yes.
It is.
Okay,
Yeah, that tree is rotten. It has actually dead branches from that tree are laying on top of the power line currently. And there is a hole in it about the size of your fist you can put in it. And so it has also been on as a
Cool.
It cleared CEQA and is a part of the approved site plan that the council has approved.
Cool. I'll just,
To be
if
removed.
it comes up again, I'll clarify that for him.
Taking a tree, whatever, one up front here.
It was not in good health. We've taken down a number of trees and we're continuing to work at that. We have a list. So
You know the story of Oak Street?
probably had a bunch of oaks on it.
No, there's a tree been here forever. It somehow or another, the paper came to us, and we all signed it, without realizing what's happening. And the oak tree on Oak Street got cut down. I'm just trying to make sure that that does never happen again. They want to call it No Oak Street. And people played on that Oak Street for as long as Dunsmuir's been around. So before that happens, and it's like we get threatened again, I'm just trying to make sure
Okay.
that we're not cutting down something that is part of the history of Dunsmuir.
Okay.
Well, and technically, we do not have a heritage tree ordinance, so there's technically no rule protecting older trees.
But if it would have been, if we would have talked about the trees getting cut down, and you understand, it's the tree on Oak Street, rather than here to sign this.
So to avoid discussion, you can ask to have a heritage tree ordinance brought forward to the planning commission at future agenda items. But again, there's no rule that says you can't cut down a tree.
Well, I was just wondering, and it's clear that if the building's gonna go where the tree is, the tree has to come down. That's what I was just
Right.
wondering about,
Yes.
so.
That is true fact.
Yep.
Do
Okay.
you have anything else?
Yes, and then also we have interviewed for public works positions. Put out a number of offers for 4 positions, and we had 3 accept, and we're choosing to wait a couple weeks until they're on board before we go in and put out another offer. And so we also did have an employee resign and choosing to go to school. So that's kind of why we're hiring 4 rather than 3.
Right. Any other questions for the city manager? Seeing none, we'll move into council member reports. Would you like to start?
Sorry, I just have one real quick.
Oh.
Could you comment on the item that went out in
On the sidewalks.
sidewalks? Yeah, because I don't think council heard about it, and I don't remember receiving one.
I don't think I got it.
Maybe I-
You know, what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we are aware that there's a number of sidewalk issues, and in our sidewalk ordinance, in the code, there is outlines who owns what, right? And so we're just bringing that back up, that everybody's aware. We are going to fix our sidewalks. You know, I know there's a sidewalk right here by this tree, and we know there's a sidewalk up there that has issues. We know that. And so this is our awareness to the community that, hey, look, we're gonna fix our sidewalks and we're gonna start enforcing some of these actions. And in order to release that, get them fixed, get them corrected, and reduce the liability out there on the streets. We're aware of some of those on Sacramento. Some have received letters. It's just, we don't have a lot of funding and it takes a lot of time. And so we're trying. It's a long ongoing effort. And as far as the curbs, I know that the curb right there by Peter, I know what he's talking about. And we just have not had the staff or the time to get to fixing the curbs. But the curb is part of the street. The sidewalk is part of the property owner.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, continue, Councilmember.
Oh. I just want to say that steampunk was phenomenal. We had 25 vendors. It was probably the best one. Great attendance.
Cindy Foreman,
Cindy Foreman is amazing. As well as Chris Jones, who helped her. I give them both big props. Len Foreman too, because he hung in there all day with her. It was really good, and I'm really looking forward to the next time. I would like to apologize to council because I didn't make it to the conference. I don't know how the hell it happened, but I got pneumonia in the middle of the summertime. And I got to tell you, I really would have rather been at the conference because getting sick sucked, and the cough and the head, oh my God. So, and then just get my strength back after just training. So I apologize. I hope you guys have had a great time. And I'm bummed that I couldn't go, so I just wanted to put that up.
Thank you, Councilmember Deutsch.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I wanted to point out there's a green waste day coming up on October 21st from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm excited about that. There also is, I just heard about this today. There's a movement to have a Veterans Day memorial. And I was contacted by Len Foreman. So there's a group of people that are working on that, and there'll be something coming further on that coming down the line. I'm excited just to let everyone know that, as you may know, I've been working on getting a capstone project from a student at UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies. And we've identified a young woman from Florida who's second year of a graduate program. We had her at the last local transportation commission meeting, and she's on board. And what's really nice about it is, I may have mentioned before, that the reason that what happened is we found out that the director of the institute is somebody who every year comes up here with his friends to go to the Railroad Park Resort. So he was the one who helped me put together the proposal for the capstone project to make sure it looked good. And I found out afterwards, he actually on the database put a note on there saying that the director is personally interested in this and wants to make sure that we get taken care of. So in the next year, we'll have a student that'll be helping us design a bus system that really meets the needs of our community. And I'm excited about that to go forward. The other thing I thought I would do, we started doing this last year, is for the people that went to the conference, kind of give a report on what they did. I've got a brief one to do here, and Michael can follow up after that. The ones that I went to that I was impressed with, there was one on emergency planning and developing partnerships ahead of time. I appreciated that. That's the second one I've gone to, and it helps to build on the idea of how to prepare ahead of time for disasters by working out the partnerships ahead of time. I was actually disappointed in the rural cities session. Up until this point, it had been led by Joan Freeman Smith from Arwika and another woman from Jan Arbuckle, who's president of the division. And it kind of went to a different direction. So instead of having a large group of people that were from small little rural communities, most of them were 10,000 or more. And when they asked how many people, 10,000, and everyone's raising their hand. And I think Michael will agree that when we got to the end of it, there wasn't a whole lot of wisdom we could get out of it, because they basically said, ask your rich people around to help you, you know, and it doesn't help us much here. There was also a good session on communicating to people as humans, how to write so that you're actually communicating in a way where they'll understand and come away with it. Michael turned me on to a good thing at the expo. There was a company called justserve.com, and told me to go over and check them out. And what they are is they represent the ability for this volunteer move we're trying to improve on, to be able to provide a web interface for all the different volunteer opportunities. So I'm going to follow up on that. And finally, I think Mr. Clarno will agree with me. The keynote speaker was the best keynote speaker I've ever seen in my entire life. There were times when I was in tears. And basically it was about a young African-American kid who grew up in an abusive home and thought he could get out of it with basketball, broke his knee, and he had to kind of come to grips. And he ended up turning his life around because of the love of a particular professor who understood that he just needed to be supported. And he ended up going on to start at Harvard University. Every summer they have a debate session where they bring in schools from all across the country, the top schools, to come and practice and debate. And what he started was in Atlanta. He went around and went to all the poor schools and brought together a cohort of 25 students that over the course of a year, he trained them on Saturdays. And it turned out that they won the first division, that was the first competition the first year. The second year, they not only won, but they won without losing one of the debates. And they ended up winning 5 in a row. And so it was really just a moving thing to see this person who's come from such a painful place. He actually tried to commit suicide and turned around and did that. So he was basically sharing with us the idea of looking at the people we serve as people that we can bring up and help them by the way we act with them and react with them. So those are the things that I was struck by. And I had a very good thing, and it was really interesting. If in 2 years, if you guys plan on going again, Airbnb we went to was like 3 blocks away. And when you look at $165 for two compared to what it would be in a hotel for one, it's a really good deal. And I don't think my snoring woke Michael up or anything, so it was a good trip. Thank you.
Great. We'll go over to Councilmember Brennan.
Cool. Yeah, I'll start off, since you were just speaking about it, about the Cal Cities conference. Overall, I thought the conference was great. I also agree with Bruce, the small cities one was a little disappointing, but overall it was really good. He was, right, that the keynote speaker is by far the best keynote speaker I've ever heard. And I just wanted to build on one thing on why I feel he had a message that was really important to all of us as counselors and city staff. And that's, if you're having trouble understanding someone's point of view or reaching out to them, is really just looking at them as an individual and not trying to look at them, not looking at them as, say, a constituent, or, the example he used is everyone had failed him in his life because they were looking at him as a student and he was a bad student, or they were looking at him as a son and he was a bad son. So everyone put him in that box. Whereas throughout his entire life, when they finally found someone who looked at him as a person and was able to reach and get through to him. And the reason they had him at this conference was to basically really reinforce to all these city councilors and city staff who were there, that if you disagree with someone and you're looking at them as a constituent, you're going to end up butting heads. But if you disagree with someone and you end up looking at them as a person, you'll have a much better chance of getting through and understanding each other's point of view, which is one reason I feel like it was a very applicable keynote speaker. So some of the other sessions I went to was one on fees, very exciting subject, but applicable. Water and sewer studies, potential effects of upcoming propositions, and then also a just kind of a basic forecast, both economically and government, on what's mostly going to happen for California cities in the next couple of years. One thing I got out of the expo that I brought back to Dustin, and I don't probably haven't had a chance to look at it yet, is a new flood control system that they're putting out that basically replaces sandbags. It's reusable, it's a little easier to store. So in the short term, it might be a little bit more expensive, but in the long term, it'll probably pen out. Basically what it is, it's giant long tubes that can be inflated with water, and they're heavier. So you can basically, for that section of town we have where we do have a flood risk, you basically just get you get 3 of them, 2 on the base, 1 on top. You can run it down the whole street and it can defend a much larger area. It can just be filled off of fire hydrants. And then when it's all done, one of them just gets rolled up and sits in a space about the same size as this table. So good storage. I thought it was had a lot of potential, but we'll see how when we actually give the company a call if it actually pans out. Overall, though, I thought the conference was really, really informative and a great resource. The other big thing I have today, this is the items that Dustin said he'd let me talk about, is Dustin, myself, both members of our city staff who deal with finance and banking, and then our city treasurer, Mario Rubino, met this afternoon with representatives from 3 local banks who have branches in Mount Shasta to potentially switch over to a new bank. Because as everyone knows, after US Bank closed and moved to Weed, we are now having to drive to Weed to do our banking as a city. And it's time for that to change. So we have been starting on that process. We have a few follow-up questions. We have one front runner and one we want a little bit more, a few more questions on, and then we're going to come and bring recommendations to council.
I thought for a second you were going to say we were getting a bank coming in.
We're not with Banner Bank?
We are not.
No,
we're with US Bank.
For our money market account, you're correct there, but.
For our day-to-day, like, cash flow, it's US.
I thought
Yeah,
for a second you were saying that we got a bank to come in and relocate. to
No.
Dunsmuir.
one question,
That was our question.
that was a question. So we did have one of the questions for all the banks was whether or not they would be interested in bringing in a branch or an ATM. And on the branch, they did not even answer, none of them answered that question. And for the ATM, we got 1 no and 2 maybes. So,
Ooh,
yeah.
I'm okay with maybe.
yeah, so the one that gave a no was pretty much, yeah. So those couple that were maybes are, we're hoping to hear back from them. They each had some different costs associated with the ATM and
Maybe our
few different
maybes will be
options.
maybes.
maybe our maybes will be maybes. So, yeah.
Maybe they'll grow up to become yeses.
Mhm.
All right, Councilmember Brian.
No comment this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I've got a couple, I just wanted to bring to attention. There's gonna be an event this Sunday from 4 to 8 PM. It's kind of a 2-part event. It's 100th anniversary of the tragedy at Tunnel 13, which was basically a bank robbery gone wrong on the Union or South Pacific line in the Siskiyou Mountains. But basically one of the individuals who was a victim of the robbery is buried in our cemetery. So at 4 o'clock on Sunday, they'll be doing a little thing at the cemetery, and then they'll be going down to the wheelhouse at 6 PM. To kind of have an event and some music around that. There's actually really cool like documentary about it. The Smithsonian has written about it. It's a really neat story. So if you guys are around and want to learn more about that, it's the literal 100th year anniversary on Sunday of that event. I was at the active transportation public engagement at the farmers market. We had a really great time. Like stopped by. It was great. We handed out koozies and got a lot of really good input on some of the recommendations that we have. We do have a public engagement for the draft recommendations coming up here in October. It's on October 11. It's, I think, like a Thursday, but we'll find the date for you. I think we were solidifying the location still, but we want to make the community, the 18th. Thank you. So October 18th, do you have the time on there?
4:30.
Yeah, 4:30. Did we solidify the
Here.
here?
Or, yeah, I don't know.
Did we solidify the
We might
community
be-
building? Okay, we'll double check.
You already emailed.
Okay, we'll make sure we'll send
Yeah,
out
I
an
don't
email
think
to the
it's right.
council members and please let people know. So what we'll have is the draft final recommendations. We want people's input on that for the active transportation plan. So this is a bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, traffic calming, stuff like that. So we want to get people's opinions on that. It's very important to have that. And then I am still
Question, how are you feeling about the feedback you got back with the online survey for that?
I thought it was really good. They were really impressed with how many people that they got.
Okay,
For
cool.
how tiny our town is. I think they had over 500 responses, 400.
Somewhat, it was a crazy
It
number.
was quite
Wow.
high for like the percentage. Like
Wow.
normally we shoot for about 5% of the total population. Which is like less than 200 people. And we got quite a bit of participation and we had really good engagement at the farmers market event. And they had really good, they said they had really good engagement at the in-person workshops as well so far. So we just want to continue to get the word out, get people involved in that. It's very funny. Someone comes up and is like, I want this project. And it's like, this is the time to tell us. So this is the place to be. So we're really kind of trying to push that last round of public engagement around that. And then I am working on putting the parks, the third parks meeting together. I apologize. I'd gotten COVID and sick and then busy. And so I will put that all together for you and report back on that. In addition to that, I did not go to the Cal League of Cities, but I did go to the American Planning Association California State Conference, which is a bunch of planners. We went to Fresno, which
Was it a well-planned event?
it was very well planned, actually. Actually, it was really
Except
fun.
location.
It was really fun to be in Fresno for Mexican Independence Day. If you don't know this, Fresno is the most diverse city in California. It is over 50% Mexican-born immigrants and Hispanic individuals, Latin American individuals. They also have about a third of their population is also African-American Black individuals. So it's one of the most diverse, culturally interesting, in my opinion, to, get out of here for a little bit. No offense to here, but it's fun to have really good tacos. But a lot of the stuff that I focused on is stuff that I've talked about here a lot, which is looking at the new brownfields funding that's available for building updates, so working with that and got some really good context from the Creative Land Recycling Institute or Center for Creative Land Recycling. They have a bunch of grants coming out for disadvantaged communities that are disproportionately impacted by lead. And so that's one of the things that we have in our old buildings. So working with them. I also went to a session on planning for neurodiversity in the community, which was really fascinating. There were 2 neurodivergent individuals who did a lot of transit research at UCLA and San Jose State, who presented on thinking about how to include people who are on the have different neurodiverse diagnoses. So ranging from people who have autism to people who have ADHD, and how we plan for them in the process, or people who may not be fully auditory, and how do they process in public engagement. There was a diversity summit talking about Fresno. The interesting thing about that is they presented on the fact that we have definitive research now that the poorer you are, the more likely you are to die. And so that poverty does have an impact on your overall health and longevity. And we can actually map that out based on where you're born and where you spend the predominant part of your life. Does impact how, your median or when you're most likely to die. Which was fascinating. And then talking about the policy about fixing that. Obviously, Fresno is in the San Joaquin Valley, which is has a lot of smog issues, air quality issues due to farming and transportation. I went to CEQA, I will not bore you with that, and implementations of conditions and mitigations. I did go to the electrification of the freight industry and the future of electric highways in the state of California, as well as the nation. Looking at the city of Livermore and Fontana, have a lot of solar powered and electricity based charging stations or fueling stations for the new types of vehicles that they're deploying that are all completely electric for freight. And talking about the different things that are going to need to happen, as well as different ordinances, checklists, and funding opportunities for interstate cities to have more semi depots that are mainly electrification, solar powered, and wind powered. That was really neat. I went to a carbon neutrality session, if you really want to talk about that, and then funding for clean mobility programs and the inequities of the public health within communities. Really, mainly the ones that impact us are the electrification of freight and brownfields. So those were the ones I focused on. Thank you. All right. We are at 7:05. Do we want to take a 5-minute recess before we move into action items? Were there any committee reports? I didn't think any committees.
Yeah, we met before. We met the snow policy committee.
Okay, do you want to give the snow policy committee and then we'll recess for 5 minutes?
Yeah, so basically we just dug in a little deeper into a lot of the ideas that had been brought up in the first meeting, and started kind of Dustin had basically given us a sample or a draft policy that worked off of what a couple other cities had done, and really just trying to fine tune that a little bit for Dunsmuir, and trying to find some solutions that will make plowing for the city easier and have less impact on the citizens. Such as switching some streets over to a odd even parking during snowstorms, which is where on odd days of the month, everyone parks on one side of the street, and so we can plow the other side, and then even day, they move back over to the other side so the city can plow the other side. That way we're not telling everyone along huge chunks of the town, just, well, go find another place to park that's 20 miles away, exactly. And trying to find solutions that work for our community, not just working off of what's worked for other communities.
I had a request by Karen Spivak to also consider if it's possible to have somebody to clean off the sidewalk in front. I don't know if that's part of the equation here, but she did ask to see if that's possible.
Sidewalks in what area?
Like right in front of the library, so people can get into the door.
Yes, and that is one thing that we did also talk about a lot is downtown managing the snow on the sidewalks in downtown, and kind of basically the overall timeline process of which Dustin can go into a little bit more potentially, but it will be in our final proposal to council of when various areas have the snow removed and what the priorities
Sure.
are.
I just
but-
wanted to pass that along so I didn't drop it and forget about it.
Yep, and we definitely did discuss the downtown district and how we can improve the services provided to our citizens. So,
All right, any other quick questions? Otherwise, we are gonna recess until 7:15. All right, I will reconvene the city council of the city of Dunsmuir at 7:16. And we'll continue into our consent agenda. We have 3 items tonight on the consent agenda. Item 8A. Oh, I apologize. 7 is the approval of the minutes. Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from September 7th, 2023.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Bryan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Move now into number 8, consent agenda. First, we have our check register for August 26th through September 29th, 2023. 8B is our COPS grant budget amendment, proposed increased budgeted revenue amount. 8C is Prop 68 Children's Park Grant sole source justification paperwork. Any questions or a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
There's a motion to adopt. Is there a second?
I will.
Ooh, I'm gonna give it to Bruce. All right, motion by.
Sound more firm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Deutsch. Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Bryan,
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno,
Aye.
Mayor Lucchese.
Aye. Just because we had a couple of grant things in there. So we'll move into item number 11 because we do not have any public hearings or old business tonight. So our first up is 11A, which is just cause for remote attendance at public meetings. Do you just want me to talk about this one?
Go ahead. I realize there's not even a memo when I
Yeah,
open
no.
it up. I'm
It's
like,
okay.
oh, well.
So let
My
me
bad.
go to the page. It's only a small portion of the protocols that has been
Page 16.
updated. Yeah, it's going to be, yeah. Actually, I believe it's a little bit,
16.
and I think it's further in the agenda packet than
No,
16.
page
Nope,
16
page
is the
16.
teleconferencing opt-in.
Oh, thank you.
I have it on page 16, yeah.
Are you looking at the actual protocols?
I'm in the packet.
In the packet, it's page 16.
Page 16 in the packet. Yep.
Oh, the form. Yes, I was looking for the track changes in the protocols. I'm sorry. Thank you. No, yeah, no, I know which one is. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so there's an opt-in form that has been recommended for cities to utilize by council members and planning commissioners who wish to participate remotely. These are all based off of the Assembly Bill 2449 that was signed into law, and it made several changes to the Brown Act on a temporary basis. So again, these are not formalized yet, but I think there is going to be a move to formalize this process, which would be great. So basically what AB 2449 has outlined is that there is still protocols that we have to follow. And so the second page that's on page 17 kind of outlines a little checklist that if you are going to be participating remotely or requesting to do that, you still do have to comply with each one of these little boxes. There is overlap between those. And so some of them, you know, you'll just be able to do by posting. But basically within AB 2449, it gives a couple of different reasons or following circumstances that state law has defined as just cause for remote participation within a meeting under the new regulations, mainly childcare or caregiving issues. So again, if there is someone who is dependent upon you for their care and you need to take care of them, you may remotely participate via this state bill. Travel associated with city or state business, personal travel and or business, emergency circumstances, which has a very kind of broad definition, but that is to cover situations when, you know, your house may burn down or a relative and you need to go out there for emergency circumstances to help them. Death in the family can qualify as emergency circumstances. The big ones are contagious illness, physical or mental disability. There is an other, but we don't recommend using that option because there's some very specific guidelines to what that other is. Typically, we would have to define what that option is. Now, in terms of our implementation for our local jurisdiction, we can choose to acknowledge all of these options, or we may make it more strict and say that you can only declare just cause for some of these items. And so that could be up for discussion today if you want to amend that. And then in terms of the amendments to the protocols, it is a little bit further. Thank you. You know, it's okay. I'm like, I had it down earlier. Easier to search function on my computer. 46. Ah, here we go. Thank you. Yes, page 46 of the packet, you'll see the striking of the language within the protocols as well as recommended inserted text to meet the needs of this. So basically, we don't just use Skype anymore. So we removed that and just said remote, because again, some cities do Zoom, some do Teams, some do Skype. So we just put remote as the general. So basically, it mimics a lot of the language that's on the teleconference opt-out form in that paragraph at the beginning, just explaining the context for this. And then again, here are the circumstances that council members may participate remotely for just cause. And just to clarify, a majority of the council members do have to be physically present in this room to hold the meeting. So 3 of us do physically have to be here. 2 of us can participate remotely. But if 3 of us are going to be gone, like with the Cal League of Cities, it's not a quorum. We have to have a majority of the people here in person. So are there any questions before we open public comment?
I do have I have a question and a clarification. One, I was under these, and I might be wrong about this, but it says personal and or business travel.
Correct.
I was under the assumption that personal travel was not one of the things for remote meetings, but I might be incorrect about that.
It was covered in the state legislation. So some local jurisdictions have chosen to remove that one just based off of their own protocols.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted is a clarification, especially just before public comment, in case it affects anyone's public comment, is since this was an issue during one of our times when we had someone, a member of this body remote, and that is the line under the AB 2449 conferencing rules, which is if there's a disruption to the meeting broadcast or in the ability to take call/internet-based public comment, no further action can be taken on agenda items until the issue is resolved. And I would just like some clarification on whether that is on our end, or because there was the time where I'm sure we all remember it, Dave, when you were joining us remotely and somewhere on the connection on one side or the other, it fell out. And I just want to know if that happens and we're meeting remotely, if we lose one, if 4 of us are here and 1 person is remote and lose that person, does that mean we need to stop the meeting? Or is it only if public comment and everything else is affected? So if it fails on the council members' end, or if it fails on our end, and where the distinction is in these rules.
Yeah,
So
that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that, but I can get back to you on that. So if we don't want to vote today, that's perfectly fine until we clarify that, but I do not know off the top of my head.
I will just put it this way, since that is an actual part of the law that we can't do anything about, I'm perfectly fine still moving forward and voting. I would just like that clarification. And since we can't change that, I have no issue voting on this today. I would just like clarification so that way we're all on the same page and understand moving into the future and there's no confusion.
Yeah, it's a good point. Any other questions before I move into public comment? All right, we'll open this up for public comment. If you would like to comment on the just cause remote meeting participation policy or proposed amendments to the protocols, please raise your hand on Zoom, or you may approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes.
Crickets.
All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move into discussion. I'll
guys want to do?
open the floor. Does anyone have any issues with adopting the full list, or do you want to take the personal travel?
Oh,
and
no,
business
I'm
out?
fine with that.
You know, I could see maybe not including personal travel, but like I travel 3 times a year for business and I'm required for that to do it. And often I could attend. Twice this year, I wasn't able to attend. I listened in, but I couldn't participate because of it. So yeah, we could keep it all or separate out business. I don't know if we're allowed to.
I move we approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Deutsch and a second by Councilmember Clarno to approve as presented. Seeing no other discussion, we can move into a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. And I apologize for that taking so long to get to you, and I will clarify the loss of participation piece. I appreciate that point. All right, we'll move into item 11B, which is risk management policy and general information on city self-insurance and workers' compensation.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. The packet you have in front of you, hopefully you guys read it, understand it. I won't go through everything. Main pieces I want to point out is, for the benefit of everybody that's listening, the city is self-insured. So we do not have an insurance company that we are going to go get if we're going to hold it to the insurance company, right? We are the insurance company. You guys right here sitting on the council, and maybe according to this policy, you guys set what claims you want to pay, how you want to pay it out, how much you need to pay, all that stuff, right? You guys right here and the city taxpayers, general fund, water fund, enterprise funds, they're the ones paying the bill. Okay.
How does SCORE fit into this?
Yeah.
Excellent question. Way to segue. So we are a member of a joint power authority, JPA, called SCORE, Small Cities Organized Risk Effort. Okay, it's a bunch of small cities up and down the corridor here, all the way down to, I think, like Sacramento is kind of the furthest south. So that entity pools their money, hence the term pooling, if you've ever heard that, pools money in that on page 55 of your packet. I like the breakout that you see there. Now I'll take a quick step back, right? There are 2 programs that we're in. We're in the general liability program and the workers' comp program. Okay, so general liability is, there was discussion earlier about sidewalks. Somebody trips and falls on a sidewalk and it is the city's fault, then that is general liability. Okay, workers' comp, pretty clear, it's for the city workers. So if our city worker bashes their thumb with a hammer, then that's a workers' compensation claim. All right, so 2 programs. You see those 2 boxes there on page 52. The left box says excess layer at the top. So the left box is the general liability, I believe. Okay, yeah, general liability. So you see at the very bottom, the banking layer, and then you see shared risk layer, and then you see excess layer. So there are these 3 layers, and these are all the coverage amounts. So at the very bottom, banking layer, member entity. So that's us. That's City of Dunsmuir right now. $0 to $25,000. So if the sidewalk injury costs $25,001, we as the city, the taxpayers, city members are paying $25,000
out of the general fund.
So we're cutting a check. Yes,
Yep.
if it's a sidewalk, general liability, right? General fund. All right, so the city's cutting a check for $25,000. Then that $1 goes into the shared risk layer. So then that's the SCORE members, right? So then $1 is then paid by the SCORE treasurer, and that claim is then settled by $25,001, right? Yeah. And so you see the shared risk layer there, $250,000 to $750,000, right? So if there's a claim that's $751,000, $25,000 comes from the city. The next $25,001 to $750,000 is paid by SCORE, and then the $1 is then paid by the excess layer, and then it gets a little nuanced in there. So I don't need to go into all that unless you really want to, but come talk to me.
Yeah.
Great. So that's general liability. It's the basic same principle for workers' comp, and you see that on the right box. All right. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover in this little short snippet right now about SCORE, about the city's responsibilities, in that we are self-insured and that there is no insurance company out there that we have. Now, the benefits of JPAs real quick. So with our shared layer there with SCORE, so Dunsmuir puts in some money, that's the banking layer. The other cities put in the money. That's now SCORE's money. We invest it, and the investment earnings are then kept within the pooled resources, right? So that's the benefit of that. Now, if you do need to get into it further, the whole reason to set up the whole JPA is because the insurance market was just getting wacky in that nobody was insuring cities. So it almost became a requirement, a necessity.
So as a sample, if there was a claim of, let's say, $30,000, how would that pan out then? We would pay 25 and they would pick up the rest?
You got it. Exactly. Beautiful.
And our premium is based on the claim rate too, so that increases our risk, and they balance our risk over a number of years. So then that determines on what we pay in a year to cover to basically that shared layer as well.
We were in a nightmare zone for a while and got out of it. So, but we're in a good situation now with them, with the monthly or yearly payments.
Maybe what you're referring to is there was an assessment given to Dunsmuir. That is, yes, our claims were higher than what we were putting in, hence the need for an assessment. And so we were paying that off over a 3-year period, I think.
That's what I remember too. But we're good now though?
We're paid off on that assessment and we are doing okay.
We're not risky.
We're not ready.
Doing good is a good thing, right?
Excellent segues now into the risk management policy, as you see before you here. So some of the policies are simply like, yes, we want to be as safe as possible. So that does lead to the whole sidewalk ordinance, tree ordinance, all these kinds of things, to where it's not an automatic sewer backflow, not an automatic, the city's at fault. I'm a citizen, I'm going to go after the city. Now, for any citizens out there that are wondering, we as a city want to work with you. If you do have issues and problems, please come to us. We are happy to work it out together, and it can be worked out. So the basics. Oh, I wanted to touch real quickly on our SCORE piece real quick. I had it circled there. So they're called a TPA, third party administrator. For general liability is a new company called George Hills. For workers' company, it's a new company called Intercare. And that's what SCORE, the SCORE entity, the member agencies, which Dustin and I are the representatives for the city of Dunsmuir at the SCORE JPA. So we all voted together to change the TPA. And so I just wanted to mention that we have new TPAs, and they have been phenomenal already. So it's positive news there. Okay, so backing now to the actual policy at hand here. The major things I just want to point out is that, yes, with the policy are saying like we want to be as safe as possible. So that means we want to get our required trainings, like for workers' comp, we want, ergonomic, or if you are using a hammer, make sure you don't hit your thumb. I'm not a workers' comp, trainer of these sorts. So
but I think that's a good idea.
Clear to not hit your thumb. Yeah. So that language is kind of in here. The pieces that I kind of want to point out and highlight is in the general liability program, the claim authority. So on page 54, about middle of the page, what we're hoping for, and in this policy, and all this stuff can be changed, by the way, depending on discussion, is to grant city manager authority up to $5,000 to settle claims. So let's say it is somebody comes in and says, some claim that is easily distinguishable. City man, I don't necessarily want to give specific examples, but that is maybe a possibility. Yeah, without giving specifics, it's a claim that is clearly at fault for whomever reasons. City manager can say, here's the settlement of the claim. We're done, right? So that authority is up to $5,000. The city manager and the city attorney have authority up to $25,000. So there's where we get to our banking layer right there. Above that, you guys, city council would need to be the ones that would decide. Now, how that can potentially work, right? We get that claim for $25,001. We, staff, we need to come to you guys prior to going to the scoreboard to say, city council, do you guys want to pay this claim of $25,001? You guys get the authority on that.
Would that be closed session?
Yeah.
Most like it, yeah.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
So we would come to you, and then that's where you guys get the decision, like, no, this person is not, you know, in the right. Let's make this claim that we don't want to accept this claim, or we do want to accept the claim, right? So that's where it's going to come to you guys here. And that would be a decision of the 5-member board, right? So anything above that $25,000 threshold would need to come to you guys first. Then it would go to the scoreboard. The board then makes a decision on the dollar figure above 25,000. Okay. So that's the piece on general liability. And it kind of falls in line with this, the banking layers, and you'll kind of see. Now, converse that with the workers' comp program. So on page 56, those same tiered levels of authority are slightly different. And let's take a step back a little bit. The workers' comp over the years has come to where if somebody does hit their thumb, it's kind of an automatic, this is $100. I'm not using real numbers, but I hit my thumb, that's $100. I hit my whole hand, that's $500. I hit my whole arm, $5,000, right? So there's kind of these set by law, by state law, kind of, I mean, it doesn't exactly work this way. So, but the idea is there to where I poke my eye out, it's a certain kind of dollar figure. Get a head injury.
Can I just really jump in here?
Yeah.
As someone who actually just today ran a workers' comp financial analysis for 2023, just to put some of these numbers in perspective, where it says up to $3,500, up to $100,000, and over $100,000, that basically equates to, if someone goes to the, if a city employee goes to the ER workers' comp wise, that's going to be about $2,500. If they do anything more than get like 2 doctor's appointments, or if they needed these numbers can get really high, very quickly. And so when you're listing basically 3,500 up to 100,000 and over 100,000, I just want to put this out there. Under 100,000 is an ER visit and maybe a follow-up. Anything more than that is, you know, if it's a moderate injury, it's going to be in that up to $100,000, and anything that's decent, just to kind of put that perspective in everyone's mind. Sorry, since I just ran that report.
Could not have said it better myself.
With exact numbers.
Shouldn't we have a policy that our
Spot on.
workers shouldn't get injured?
Or does give you like a prize if you go a whole year without getting a claim. We did it once in Mount Shasta and they catered us.
Hey, you have an employee saying, don't hit your thumb with the hammer, right?
I think that's in there. Yeah.
A little bit.
It's only the left thumb though. The right one's on limits.
Real insurance companies, workers' companies hate programs like that.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, yeah, question. What is this replaced? Or is this? We didn't have one, or SCORE didn't have one, or?
We didn't have one.
We did. The city did not have one.
Yeah.
Well, so that,
Mhm.
I don't get this.
Was this a prototype that SCORE gave you guys, like as a recommendation, or did you guys develop it in-house?
It actually came from George Hills. Yeah. And George Hills, the person there is a phenomenal person, been in the risk management industry for 30 some odd years. He's the risk manager for Reading and another place. I forget where now. And he's just, he knows his stuff left and right. And so I'm very confident in the policy. I hope we can adhere to the policy.
Well, I have no further questions.
Any other questions before we open public comment? All right, if you'd like to make a public comment on the proposed risk management policy, please raise your hand on Zoom or approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move into discussion.
Start.
Go ahead.
A couple of things I don't like about the policy, but generally speaking, I think it's great to have it in place and good to just have that authority clarify, what needs to be. I'm fairly comfortable with the 5,000 range, but not at all comfortable with council not being involved until 25. And then just because we're a smaller city, I think most cities would have more claims. And so the need for administration probably be greater, can't come to council if you have 10 claims a month. But I don't know the data on the numbers we've had and whether there isn't space perhaps to have council. No, and to that point, I'm really not comfortable with council not being notified unless the judgment's above 25,000. So even if it were a $3,000 claim, I think it's good for us to understand the risk in which we live and the financial, things. Maybe you don't notify us under 5,000, but definitely if there's a $20,000 claim or even an $18,000 claim, I think we can't be flying blind, and I'd like to be notified.
So on the court judgment piece, I think that's like a court mandated thing. So it's like, we may not even have any choice whatsoever anyway. So that's the only, the only slight caveat there.
Would already come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that too.
Yeah.
I guess point being, then maybe we need to work that into the policy, like, so you have the authority to do it, but even if it's just once a year, we need these were all the claims paid. It'll come up in the budget if you dig deep enough, but we're typically too distracted with other issues when we're reviewing the budget.
Could you maybe just have an amend or an addendum to the budgets on a semi-annual basis, just going, here's the number of claims we've had, and here's the dollar amount?
We've already set, supposed to have quarterly updates to the budget, so we could have a notification of claims section there, but
Yep.
we've never done our quarterly updates. We just do them haphazardly, so I don't know. If we could get that program going, that'd be a place to put it. Otherwise, maybe just provide me with some context. How many claims have we had this year so far? Like first of all, maybe not even claims settled, but just claims. So we can
I
understand.
want to say there's been,
And
This is just liability.
I can't remember how many claims there are. One or two, maybe.
Okay.
the other thing I wouldn't mind seeing, if we do keep it as with this kind of basic structure, is any related claims that are under that 25,000. So say if we have like, especially on being informed, so say there's a big snowstorm and we have, a couple city trees fall and we have a $5,000 claim, a $10,000 claim, and a $15,000 claim, so together they all add up to 25,000. Obviously, we don't need to go into each and every one of those claims, but it would be nice to be informed. Yeah, at least be informed of those, so that way we're aware that there's that general from that kind of an issue. Or the other reason I'm thinking about this is there's a classic thing in risk management. Tomorrow or today's near miss is tomorrow's major accident. And so if we end up just keep having to do a $5,000 claim like 5 times, and it adds up to 10,000, or it adds up to 25,000, it'd be nice to know that.
I recognize not bringing it to council as part of the inconvenience that, it's potential litigation. So if we're gonna get into the details of it, even say something like, hey, we've had this many trees fall, it's a major risk, and we think it represents this likelihood. That's probably not something you have in a public meeting. You'd want it in a closed session, which we don't have as frequently. So I don't know,
But real quick on that point, I support your opinion, and even from a standpoint of administering the claims or managing the claims, it is, well, excuse me, I need to go get council approval.
yeah.
I need to get a council approval over 5,000. If they go, oh, well, then just give me 5,000, you can settle that. Whereas they may be saying, oh, I have to get approval at $1. They're gonna say, okay, give me $1. Right? So there's that mindset as well. So I'm pointing that out in terms of love the discussion to even modify some of these numbers.
The only other thing I want to point out on this, and I'm just kind of thinking here and putting this out there for this discussion, is anytime you can get someone to settle is a good thing, because if anything goes to court, the court fees for that are going to outweigh most of the judgment. And if we can have, hey, so if someone comes up and says, hey, I want to take, I want this much money, and Dustin and the city attorney say, Right, so John says that's a great, that's a good deal. If we can sign off on that and get that out of the way versus giving them a week or, 2 weeks potentially to sit and marinate and not hear anything back. Then all of a sudden they might be, someone might talk, why'd you only offer them 8,000? You know that's probably worth 50,000, take them to court, and so that's the one thing I kind of see is any claim that you can get run through as quickly as possible.
$25,000 kind of your thing that, oh, sorry, the $25,000 number, it's kind of arbitrary, but in the scheme of going to court, I mean, we can hit 25,000 in a heartbeat. And so those kind of things, it's like, if we're going above that, then we're in the litigation component of it. And
Yeah, on that note, is there any likelihood that you would ever issue a $5,000 settlement without checking with the city attorney?
yeah, maybe, depends on what it is, but I mean, the last couple, like, we had a larger one that we denied that we consulted with John.
Yeah.
But it just depends on what the situation is.
Like a rock falls out of a public works truck and it breaks someone's windshield, like.
It's on us.
Yeah.
They want,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like that. I mean, that's maybe what, $800, depending on the windshield that you have, maybe upwards of 1,200, depending if you've got something
Or
special.
like Dave said, a
Exactly.
tire or something like that.
to not tie staff hands entirely, we changed from 25 to 10. So it gives you more room, involve the attorney, but still. It
Yeah.
looks like our volume is fairly low still.
So I'm gonna.
I feel like that seems reasonable. Sorry,
You're okay.
just staff response, like that seems reasonable.
Turn on the quiet side and just like bring it around. Go ahead.
The one question I have is, we were talking about keeping track of the amount spent. Isn't there an account number that for all these payments, expenditures, right?
Yeah, and so on that too, so like I kind of said that we don't necessarily have a insurance company, right? So that banking layer that I was talking about, we have banked the banking layer. So we've been putting money into this thing. And so we're not technically, a claim comes in for 5,000, we're not having to pull out our checkbook and give them $5,000, right? So there's in our banking layer, right? But you bring it back to that other point, our banking layer was in a negative position. So then that's where the assessment came in, right? So that's a little bit more nuanced that I'm happy to get into. But I just wanted to make that point that as this discussion is fantastic, that there is those pieces where we kind of do have an insurance. I mean, it's been our money, right? So we in the budget, we budget $50,000. I forget what the number is for these two pieces, and that goes in and we pay it, right? And so we've been paying that $50,000 for the past years.
So there is an account number, so if we wanted to, we could look at that and see it's going up, it's going down over time, right?
You would see it in next year's score payments technically.
Correct.
Yes, you would see that in there, but there's also a claims, we get the claims data that says we put in 5,000 and 5,000, we have 50,000 in here. This claim is 35,000, so now we're at 15,000, right? So we do have that particular data that I'm happy to send out as well.
Councilmember Kaiser, do you have any questions or discussion or
Just like,
any input on 25,000, 10,000?
no, good. I'm just writing numbers.
We're the quiet section, yeah.
Do you have any opinion on the 25,000 down to 10?
No, I think it's fine. I'm fine with 25. But if somebody wants to
And
go
just a-
lower, that's fine too.
Real quick note, it's like the TPA person I was talking about, this guy, he's also an incredible, valuable asset. And so it's not just us sitting over here going like, flip a coin, here we go. We are in discussions with some very
With the consultants.
with the consultants that are much smarter than myself. I don't know about this guy.
They also do claims from all the cities, right? So it's not just us, it's all of SCORE.
Yeah.
So they see this stuff every day, where we only see it when it shows up on our
I
desk.
think 10,000 would be greatly limiting in the ability to move quickly or efficiently. I think maybe. Where do you think that would hit the sweet spot? I guess my concern on the other side is just if too many of these 25,000, add up in any given time period, that's a lot of money being spent without direct council oversight or just knowledge of it, So
Could you amend it to go 25,000 for a single claim or a cumulative amount for 1 quarter?
Sure.
So like if we got two $25,000 claims in 1 quarter. it would
224.
cost
Yeah,
Well,
224.
us- Sorry, 24.
24,999.
So why don't we, I actually like that for the first one too, because 5,000. You know, I don't know how we want to limit that, but you know, at least 5 to 10 times, you know, cumulative amounts for coming to council, really, I guess. Because if we're,
Cause I think that's your point. Your point is not necessarily one individual 25,000, you know,
kind of
it's just the cumulative.
I think for a city as small as us, every one of the city councilors ought to know we're spending that amount of money for that amount. Even if it's not our decision, we have to really know about it. So we understand what the world we're living in. So I don't know, maybe 15, I think 10 might be limited. I want your guys' input on whether that would be constraining you to go down that level.
I say both would be fantastic and you guys can make a fun, great decision.
So
on either one.
can I put this out there as a potential compromise? So just to copy some of the wording of city manager the court will notify the council of anything over 25,000 for when it's a court related issue. What if we just threw in there that the city manager will notify, so not come to us for approval, but just notify us of any claims that were in excess of
I love it.
10,000 or 15,000, somewhere in that middle range. So you're not necessarily coming to us for approval, you're just notifying us.
Notifying.
Yeah.
I'd like to know everyone about 5.
Or even all claims, you want to be notified.
Theoretically.
Well, we don't receive a lot.
We don't
It's not
yeah,
like
yeah.
we could do a claims report and that's not, I mean,
Yeah, we probably don't because they're just,
Well-
they're small or really big.
Exactly.
or
And-
yeah.
So, and then the other thing I would like to maybe specify in this too, for this, if we do go down this claims report road, is at what level does that become a closed session item and what level, I mean, because if it's just a
Every-
report,
Pretty much every. claim
Every-
can be
Well,
potentially
only if we're
Every
gonna-
discussion.
yes, if all we're talking about is just the money component, like we had 3 claims for 25, it's the same
That's
as what
perfectly fine, yeah.
Mhm,
Sergeant Ortiz does with the
mhm.
criminal side of it. He's
Yeah.
only saying, well, I had 3 burglaries. He's not saying who committed the burglaries. He's not saying where the burglaries were committed, right?
Sure.
So
Mhm.
I would report the same way. I would go ahead and I would say, okay, we had 3 claims in the first quarter of fiscal year 2023. And
That's cool.
of those claims, the total amount was $16,111,
I'm
whatever.
happy with that. And then because then if we want a full, if you come to us, we had one claim, it was $24,000.
Right.
We could then request a report for the next
Yeah.
closed session.
Right, then we could just go into closed session in the following meeting or something, if that's. what
Yeah,
we
we
want to
don't
do.
know what that was about, but in general, if you had like, 3 claims and they came out to 9, 16,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily need to know everything, you're running the show, I don't get paid to run the show. But if it's big enough, I'd like to know about it.
So
Well, yeah, I just want to clarify things. You guys get to know everything, right? What I'm kind of what we're trying to get to right now, maybe Matthew, is do you as the council want to have the authority to say, yes, we do want to pay this, we don't want to pay this? And then at what level do you want that authority? Right, this is the deciding factor. So if there's a claim for $5,001, do you want that to come to here?
No,
Well,
Do you want 27,312?
yeah,
I'll put this out there and I'll see if you agree. I'm fine with it at this level if we do this notification, because then if we need to change it, we can dial it down or take it up however we feel like it. And that's where I'm at personally at this moment.
And this is a policy that can be changed anytime.
Well, I think what you're
So
saying
we
is
should-
if we get word that there's a claim of 20, or what would it be, $15,000, we would get notified. We wouldn't have to be involved unless one of us said, hey, I want to get involved for some reason then, right?
I don't
well,
think
even then you would.
at that point we couldn't get involved because the policy specifies that we can't be
Okay,
involved. We're just
okay.
notified. We're being notified so we know, and then also that way if we decide later we want to change this policy.
So I would propose we modify this policy and adopt this section of it, we've got the other stuff. to limit the $25,000 for city attorney and city manager to 15,000. And then to also put, or a council decision on claims. Well, I guess we need some sort of cumulative amount, whether it's 25,000, because that way 25,000 is the maximum we could go where we wouldn't notice it in the budget next year. Correct? Could we just redo our bank? We'd be at a break even?
No,
Is that how it works like?
no, so the pricing for score is based off of payroll amounts,
Okay.
which fluctuates sometimes greatly based off of fire department payroll. So sorry about this nuance. The nuance, the risk management, like
The liability is.
the liability factor is,
Budget.
yes, you won't see if we have a $2 trillion claim, you're not going to see that in the budget next year.
No, yeah. But you'll
We
get an
wouldn't
assessment
get
then.
No, we would.
What-
We're covered. We have to pay our 25,000 and then it would go to the next levels.
Yeah,
We would bankrupt us.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So your proposal, if I'm clear, is that you would like to amend section 1B.
Mhm.
City attorney and city manager authority up to 15,000.
Yep,
And then city council over 15,000.
yeah.
Okay, so there is a motion on the table. Is there a second? There's no second, so the motion fails. Is there another motion?
25?
Question,
Yes.
dude, you mentioned, what was his name, Hills?
It's Chris Carmona is the person. George
That's
Hills
him.
is the company.
Jordan Hills.
George Hills
George Hills.
is the company.
He's the one,
Chris Carmona is the person.
this genius dude,
Yes.
he's the one who told you these numbers.
Yes. This is for the city of Reading.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But you've adopted him on that information,
he's proposing that.
I'm proposing
we're the
them
ones adopted.
so on his advice.
on, yes.
So was that a motion to approve as presented?
Yeah, I move we approve as presented.
You have a question?
I do have a question before, do we want to put in the council notification and
Sure.
add that in?
With council notification above $5,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, and cumulative,
25,000.
yeah, or,
I'd support that
okay.
if we did.
Just a second, so this will change.
With council notification, so adopt the dollar figures as is, and then add with council notification. Over 5,000. Or. Well, then you would know if
Yeah.
it's.
Can we just say all claims?
No, meaning if we got.
Yeah,
six,
let's just go to
5,000.
all claims. Let's just,
Let's just say
all claims. Let's just say all claims.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it goes back to the original motion.
I'll withdraw my motion and let you
Okay.
go put it together.
So go ahead.
I suppose we adopt, what is it, section,
It's a motion,
Yeah.
yes.
Motion to adopt the policy with,
the policy with the change, when 1B, to state that council be notified of all claims.
I'll second that.
Above 5, right?
No,
just
all
claims.
claims.
Oh,
Can we
okay.
do that on like a quarterly basis?
Yeah,
Thank you.
On a quarterly basis. Is
Yeah.
that okay with you? You're the original motioner.
I'll second it.
Well, we have a motion in a second. We don't need any more.
I'll
Yeah,
third it.
okay, yeah, that's fine, quarterly basis.
For Wendy's sake, the motion on the table is to approve the presented document with the amendment that the city council be notified of all claims
On a quarterly basis.
On a quarterly basis.
on a quarterly basis. Thank you. And that is a motion by Councilmember Clarno, seconded by Councilmember Keisler. Any other discussion?
Real quick, we got the other schedule here. Is that tied into this motion or are we?
Do you want to be notified of workers' comp claims? I don't know. Is that a HIPAA thing?
I don't really want.
it's all open. No, it's open.
Oh, because we don't know what happened. It's just a
Right,
claim.
it's just a claim.
I mean, these
Okay.
are just big numbers for us not to know,
So
but I assume we would know
Mhm.
because of just the way it works. But I guess, if. Yeah, anyway, if
We
we
get
don't,
notified of all claims.
Mhm.
that was technically the motion, so that would technically
That would be
encompass.
all claims, yeah.
So
Quarterly.
Well, does that include?
Quarterly.
What?
Does that include denied claims or only claims paid out?
Only claims paid.
Only claims paid out. Yeah.
Okay,
Just for clarification.
Yep.
no, this is good.
That's
This is
good.
Really testing my parliamentary procedure. Gotta dust this up. So, for Wendy's sake, the motion on the table is to approve the document with the amendment that the city council be notified of all claims paid on a quarterly basis. Motion by Councilmember Clarno, seconded by Councilmember Keisler. We're good with the amendments. We'll move into a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Keisler,
Yes.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Yes, indeed.
Councilmember Bryan,
I'll abstain.
abstain, Councilmember Clarno,
Aye.
and Mayor Lucchese.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Woo.
Next
I don't want
item.
to think about that for a while.
So our next item on the agenda is 11C, which is the skid steer justification document for the grant. Let me read the actual title, please.
No plow sole source.
So 11C, skid steer snowplow sole source justification. Take it away.
All right, Mayor and Council, so we've recently gone through a bidding process based on our budget to acquire a skid steer. And as a part of that process, we also are acquiring a new snowplow. In researching, I think about 9 different companies and models, we wanted to be as versatile as possible, and also as maintenance free as possible. So this led us down the path of essentially down to 2 snowplows. And then when we got down to the technical specifications, electronics and snow are not necessarily always our friend. And so we came down to 1 model that was just strictly hydraulics and would be the most effective use of our funds and are keeping our equipment upbeat. So are keeping our uptime more relevant. And based on our operations this last winter, we've with electronic issues and solenoid issues and all those things related to plows, I would say that was 50% of our downtime was related to electronics. So we're really trying to avoid that if possible. And so here we're requesting to accept the $21,000 bid for a sole source snowplow for the skid steer.
Great. Are there any questions before we move into public comment?
What is a skid steer? I've never heard of such a thing.
Skid steer, Bobcat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so this plow specifically, so one of the things we were looking for was a plow that we could fold wings backwards so we could back drag. And so this plow actually has wings on it, and I believe it's 13 feet wide. Yeah, 13 feet wide. And then we can, the plow itself.
Yeah.
And so we can fold the wings in and use it as a box, and we can fold them backwards to back drag, like if we reach up on a sidewalk or something like that. So it's really versatile. It's something that we haven't had as in our toolbox before.
So Councilmember Bryan.
Yeah, just a quick question. Have we purchased the skid steer that we'd be using this on already, or is that the one that's rented earlier?
You should have probably just signed a check for it here this week. Somebody did
Okay,
this week.
glad to hear.
So yes, and we will bring all of our plows, everything that we've purchased, where we've got a good brunt of it accomplished already. So when we do bring forward the snow plow policy, we'll bring this up so you guys can see it. We'll have them all visible,
Is this
hopefully.
down in the art?
Not yet, no.
Wairika's asking. They really liked coming down and training with you.
Oh.
Can we do that again?
Yeah, skid steer, yes, but not this piece of equipment.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions before public comment? Seeing none, we'll open this up to public comment. If anyone would like to comment on our skid steer sole source justification, please raise your hand or approach the podium.
Snowplow.
Snowplow. Seeing none, we'll move into discussion.
Madam Mayor,
I motion to authorize the sole source purchase of a skid steer snowplow.
You know, Councilmember Brian was so excited to do that, and you beat him to it.
We're supposed to be recognized.
Would you like to second it?
Sure.
All right, motion by Councilmember Keisler, second by Councilmember Brian. May we please have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
And Councilmember Deutsch.
Aye.
Councilmember Brian.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarno.
Aye.
And Mayor Lucchese.
Aye, thank you. Motion carries. Purchase away. All right, 11D, Solid Waste Rate Study Award and authorization to contract with a budget amendment.
Matthew, did you want this one? Just check it.
I made sure to remind everyone that we had to do a budget amendment with it. So do you guys want to give it? Go for it. Do you want me to?
You're really good at it.
Okay. Okay, so as you all know, we are hemorrhaging money from our solid waste enterprise account. And so to address that, we will need to do a 218 process to address our solid waste rates. In addition to that, we have a number of state mandates coming up, as being 1383, California's composting law, green waste, things like that, as well as our waste hauler having to comply with new California Air Resource Board requirements for their vehicles, new bins, things like that. So we have a lot of things coming up. We're also hemorrhaging money. So we need to do a rate study. Solid waste rate studies are not done by a lot of people in California. There's not a lot of consultants who specialize in it. We did put this out to bid, or we put the RFP out for a number of months and we received 0 bids.
We received one question.
One question, 0 proposals.
Provided the one question.
Yeah, so the city manager and the finance director reached out to the one company that asked us a question but did not propose and said, could you please make a proposal? And so you have their proposal. And so we went out for, I think, like a total of like 60 some days. We went for a long time to try and find someone to get this. And so very similar to the sole source justification, we're basically looking for council approval to move forward with this contract so we can start the study. The study, again, like I said, will take into account all of our new state mandates. It'll take into account our current finances. And then we will participate with that. If we do want to go and do an ad hoc committee like we have with the other rate studies, that's something we can talk about at a future meeting. But at this point, we need to get a contract going. Oh, yeah, we do.
Next item.
Thank you. I'm tired. It's been a long week. It's been a long couple weeks. We basically have it before you. If you have any questions, we'll take them now before going into public comment.
I have one quick question, more clarification. So this is going into the solid waste fund.
Correct.
All right.
And I'm assuming that we would want to go ahead and have an ad hoc committee just for the idea of getting the buy-in from the people. So I just want to
Yeah.
kind of put that little pin in there.
That'll be the next step.
That's next.
That I completely forgot was the next. thing.
Oh,
Solid
Okay.
Waste Committee.
Yes. Anybody else have any questions?
So, man,
All right, do we have any public comment related to signing on to the only proposal that we begged for a solid waste rate study? Seeing none, we're gonna close public comment and go into discussion. Is there any discussion to be had? Would anyone like to make a motion? Oh my gosh.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal and authorize city manager to enter into an agreement with MSW Consultants and amend solid waste budgets according to budget amendment form.
The appropriation request is for $40,000. Just to clarify, I will second that. I don't get to do things very often. I will take it. So motion by Councilmember Keisler, seconded by Mayor Lucchese. Any other discussion? Seeing none, could we please move into a roll call vote?
Councilmember Clarno.
Aye.
Councilmember Brian. Councilmember Deutsch.
hi.
Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
And Mayor Lucchese.
Aye, thank you. We'll move into our final item of the evening, which is our solid waste committee. We had put that together as an ad hoc committee. It was Councilmember Arth when he was still on council with myself. It started with our solid waste contract, and then we expanded to include two public members, as well as appointing Diana as a representative for Clemens Waste Disposal onto the solid waste committee as a voting member. I did remember after the fact, we did appoint Thibodeau as the other person on the committee. It was Thibodeau. We did it like, and then we didn't meet because Todd left and then we didn't
Yeah,
get to
we
meet.
we didn't reappoint this last January.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
looking back at the ad hoc formation or the solid waste rate committee, it's technically a 2-year term. And so I did actually look this up, both of the public members are up for reappointment. And so we're asking the council to support going back out to the public. The 2 members who were previously appointed may reapply to be on there. But we want to open it back up to the general public to make sure we get those 2 public members. And then this committee would be charged with, or it actually has already been charged with managing the solid waste rate process. If you'll remember, the current sitting city council members are myself and Councilmember Keisler are the current sitting members on that. We have not met because we haven't had a rate study to look at. So are there any questions?
So basically what we're doing here is we're stating that the 2 of you are the members and that we're going to go out for the other members. Is that
It's
kind
just
of
to
what
go out for the public members.
Correct.
If
Yeah.
you would like to reconsider the council members who are on it, we can do that at the next meeting.
No, I've been 218'd out.
So that is not the item at hand. It's just on the
Okay.
public members. Is there any other questions before we move to public comment? Seeing none, we'll open public comment. Would you like to comment on the solid waste committee and going back out for public members and
Or
allowing the
volunteer.
previous one? And contacting the previous 2 to reapply to make that formal. Seeing none, we'll close and go into discussion. Are we okay with going back out for that? Are we okay with still using the solid waste ad hoc committee?
I say we just
Or not ad hoc. No, I
direction
think,
given.
yep, direction given. Cool. There's nothing really to vote
The
on.
consultant is like already on this whole thing and it's talking waste and having a great time. I was like, you're gonna love talking with Julie.
Oh, I love talking trash. I love talking trash. I've done so much of it today about the county.
Do we need an official motion or a second on this guy?
I mean,
No.
that
just direction,
the
probably.
committee's already been approved via resolution. I think it was more of just like an information item that we're gonna go back out. Those previous members can reapply and then we get to reappoint. So just information. All right, we'll go to item number 12, future agenda items. We have quite a bit coming up. One of the things that is not on here that will be on the next one is the proclamation against hate, which is related to the presentation that we had last meeting. The week against hate, I think, is a week in November. And so we'll do that proclamation before November, which would be great. And then one of the other requests is doing a proclamation for Veterans Day, just to kind of bring more awareness around that day and the event that is going to be put on by members of the public. There was a request for city support, but they're not asking us for really anything. So this would be the smallest gesture we could probably do to acknowledge their efforts to do that. So I thought that would be a nice
I think-
thing.
That sounds.
Mr. Arthur mentioned if we could acknowledge vets.
You mentioned it.
Yeah, yeah. So proclamation for that. And then did you have another? item?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions about the Cosmot, what was the
Yes.
workshop? The workshop, have we got that lined up?
I just got an email yesterday about a date, so I wanted to bring that up
Okay.
for future agenda. It was the second, well, let me look at the email quick so I can,
But I'm not sure, as long as you can.
well,
email it or
it'll be
whatever.
either on Monday or Tuesday. I think it's either the 6th of November, I think. Is that a Monday?
As long as you can send.
think
it to
so.
us ahead of time, that would be
Yeah.
lovely.
Did we have a date for the Park and Recreation?
She said that.
I'm
Not
not
yet.
yet on that. I've got to get the document
Okay.
printed up so everyone can get into it
Yeah.
because I received a couple
I had
emails.
a feeling on the last one. I'm looking forward to the.
I am too. That's
So
why I
either the 6th or
apologize.
7th will be the Cosmot component.
When?
6th or the 7th,
Of
so
November.
of November.
All right. Are there
When
any?
I walked up to them at the expo, they immediately recognized me and said, hey, Dunsmuir, so they know about us.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, they were at the expo.
The cannabis ordinance revision,
That is on here for a future,
Uh,
believe Rico.
kick it to the curb a couple
Where's
times.
that gonna be?
Go ahead and bring that on up.
So basically,
Been
we
to it
need
here.
to get, the city manager and I talked about this for ordinance updates. And so one of the things we need to do is we need to draft what the proposed update is. It has to go to planning commission and come back to city council. We do not technically have a budget for that, for Rico to do that and go through the process. So we had talked about contacting Rico to get a scope of work for council consideration, so we can see what needs to be done to be able to move forward with that, and then what the cost is gonna be, so that we can effectively do a budget amendment and make sure that when we're reviewing our ordinance updates that we request, that we have the general fund set aside for that. So, you know, we do have a number of ordinances that we've looked at updating. And I don't want to, you know, overextend ourselves to, you know, all of a sudden we're paying Rico $160,000 that we didn't previously budget for all of these updates. So I think we're gonna get the scope of work on that one, and work on that. I would normally step in and help out with amendments, but that one I'm gonna be a little bit impartial and try to stay out of it until it is my turn to make a decision. So that's kind of how we're hoping to approach any of those types of planning requests in the future, is that we do a budget
We
amendment.
can
for
kick
it.
this one out for a while, that's all.
Yep. I am aware.
I move we adjourn.
All right, there's a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor signal by aye.
Aye.
Okay, yes, we are adjourned. Thank you. Not gonna lie, you